How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Before I get into this one, I just want to announce that I've got a couple slots on my calendar available for a free one-to-one consulting call, where what I'm going to do is help you see where you're at with your agency, help you move to where you want to be with it, and if you're in a good fit and I think you're a good fit for our six-figure marketing consultant program, enroll you into that as well. Okay? So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead, use the link in the description. We've got tons of people booking calls. My calendar is almost full, so be sure to get one as soon as you possibly can. Next thing is, if you have any questions at all, the best place to reach me is over on Instagram at Trey Cockrum. Just my name, at Trey Cockrum. The link will probably be in the description. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook, Trey Cockrum as well. I take messages over there. We've got a Facebook group. You can find that link in the description as well. So, thank you for watching. Now on to the video. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In this one, I want to talk about the three main reasons why somebody who's starting their agency or their consulting business might not succeed. And this is from somebody, who has not only run his own, scaled from scratch to, seeing over $40,000 months, and has helped other people reach, $30,000, $40,000, even $50,000 a month with their agencies, their consulting businesses. But what I really want to help you do is understand some of the pitfalls if you're just beginning, or you're still at that, $3,000 to $5,000 a month range, or let's say you're totally a beginner as well. This video will also very much benefit you, because just for some background on myself, I'm 20 years old. I've helped over 100 people one-on-one with their agency, with their consulting business through my coaching program. And now I'm scaling back on the coaching program a little bit, and I'm going to be focusing on more of a course style form of education, so I don't have to spend so much time on the phone, so I can scale my own business, right? But that's a bit aside. The point is, I spent a lot of time talking to people, okay? There's over 150 people in the course that we have as well, so I've been able to observe them and see what patterns they're hitting and what issues they have, right? And so I'm just going to start with point one. And point one is thinking that your niche is the problem, okay? I have time and time again seen people succeed wildly or fail wildly in the exact same niches, and so therefore the variable of niche isn't even really in the equation of whether you need to change your niche in order to succeed or not. So for example, I've got one student who I've actually got an interview with on this channel, Johnny Vo, who scaled his agency with my help from zero to $30,000 a month in profit, actually landing a $9,000 deal monthly right before our interview. So technically I should have said about $39,000 or $40,000 a month in the interview, but I said 30 just to keep it reasonable. And that's in the real estate niche, right? And how did he do that? How did he do that when there's so many people who are attacking the real estate niche and they can't get their first client? It's a very common first niche to go after. And because of that, actually, Johnny has his own coaching now, and he helps people who are wanting to get into the real estate niche, right? But it's a very, very, very common niche to try and start off with, and very few people succeed with it. So why is that? Why is it that there's such a disparity? Well, I got to tell you, it is not the niche. It is how you approach the niche. So Johnny invested so much of his time getting to know real estate agents, got passionate about helping them with their businesses, really became thinking like a real estate agent himself, so that he could have the upper hand against his competition, who really all they knew was Facebook ads, and they didn't understand the model themselves. So Johnny got really good at speaking to people who are real estate agents. He got really good at understanding their problems, really good at understanding what goes on in their head at night. When they're up late at night until like 2 or 3 a.m. and they're having issues sleeping, what are they thinking about? What's a real estate agent churning over in his head regarding his business? What's that frustration? What's that problem, right? What are the main fears of these people, and how can you speak to solving those fears with marketing, right? And that's what he really got good at. And then he built a simple pipeline that he was able to send traffic down, run ads, or I think he does LinkedIn or something. I'm honestly not even sure, because I just talk principle. With every single one of my students, I talk principle and how we can get this thing to work. And I get way better results than people who just get super, super, super technical with their students. But that's not the point. What he did is he built a basic pipeline, and as he sent people down and he was talking to these people and he was having one-on-one conversations with them, these people were like, holy cow, how do you, you are speaking directly to what's going on in my head. You know exactly what's going on in my head. It's almost as if, you've been an agent for yourself for 30, 40 years. How do you know this? Let's get a meeting, They're a lot more excited to speak with you when you understand their problem. So the niche, my friend, is not your problem. The niche is not your problem. The problem is how willing you are or are not to spend your time to understand your niche. That is always the problem. That will always be the problem. And until you invest time, and sometimes in many cases money, to become an expert in your niche, you're just not going to be able to do it. It's just not going to click for you. I can almost guarantee that you will not make money unless you have some incredible offer that applies to every single niche across the board, and somehow you're able to market it and make it seem like the perfect solution to all of their problems, like some sort of Einstein of marketing. Then you're not going to be able to get the sorts of clients that you're able to get. You need to niche down, pick one niche, get obsessed with it, and don't turn away until you've gotten to at least $10,000 a month in profit. That's my advice. Don't decide whether a niche is good or bad until you're at $10,000 a month in profit. You can't even make a decision until you're at that point. It's not even reasonable because you're operating off of hypotheticals until you're there, okay? So that's the first thing. The niche is a huge, huge excuse for a lot of people. They say, my niche is bad. I want to pick a new niche. I've been doing this niche for 6 months. I haven't gotten a single client yet. These sorts of things. Or maybe you're at $3,000 to $5,000 a month and you've got 3 or 4 different people from different niches. To cut that out. What's your one favorite client? How do you turn that client into more? Take that one client, get a testimonial from them, get them amazing results, get a testimonial, market that testimonial, go join some Facebook groups, start a YouTube channel, start something that gets people coming to you instead of doing all this cold proposal bullcrap, and build a bit of a platform and start taking sales calls. That is how you scale a $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month consulting or agency business. That's how you do it, okay? So, next tip. Niche is the first thing, okay? The second thing is personal life, like bottlenecks or like balls and chains. So I've had to do a lot of churning in my personal life, okay? It has been hard, incredibly hard for me to build my time in my life into such a capacity that I can focus 100% on my business, okay? I bet you a lot of young men are experiencing this. They're experiencing either friction with their parents, or they're experiencing friction with their girlfriend. Or maybe you're not a young man. Maybe you're 40, 50 years old. Maybe it's friction with your wife. It's friction with your kids. They're like, hey, you've got a good job. What do you think you're doing? There's all kinds of friction, right? And you got to understand that people just want the best for you. And it's not only family, it's not only friends, it's not only their expectations of you. It's your expectations of yourself. It's your routines. It's your habits. It's these things that get in the way. So if there's anything that I could, if I could reach into your life and get rid of something, it's these personal life balls and chains. They will slow you down. I'm not saying to cut out family. That's incredibly unhealthy and unreasonable and dramatic. I'm not saying to cut out friends unless you know that they're the source of your cause of frustration and the reason you're slowing down, okay? What I am saying is to begin to value momentum in your business above most other sources. And until you do that, until you see your personal value and you begin to value the momentum that you're growing in your business, and then you begin to get excited and convicted about that growth, other people are going to read that you're not quite convicted. They're going to read that you're not quite sold on this, and they will kind of see that and they'll pick that out. So what's interesting is I've got this actually as my phone background on my phone right now. It says, your level of certainty and conviction will be felt and seen and adopted by others. So if you're not convicted, if you're not certain about what you're doing, then others won't see that. Others will see that 10% margin where you're not 100% sold, and they'll be like, are you sure about this? And they'll really nag at that, right? And that applies in your life too. If you are not certain, your person will not respond well because it will see that 10%, that 20%, that 30% as risk, and it won't be willing to take that jump. It won't be willing to go all in on this thing. And that's what you have to do, you guys. You can't go half pregnant on this. You have to go all in. You have to put all hands on deck. Starting a business is no joke. Starting a business in the modern economy with how competitive it is, with the freaking tax rates, with all this bull crap that you have to deal with, it's hard. And it's going to take all of you. And unless you have all of you in, you can't move. It's either every bit of you or none of you. You have to make that decision. It can't be this, I kind of do this on the side, kind of run it on the side. And you know what? If you're able to run it on the side, you're able to make some money, good for you, that's great. But I'm talking to the majority of people. majority of people who are trying to start and run their business, if you're trying to do it on the side or you're trying to balance it against other forces, just be careful. Be warned, you're going to move exponentially slower. Not just margin, it's not a linear thing. It's not like, oh, I'm going to put 40% in, so I'm going to move 40% as fast as somebody who's putting in, 100%. It's not like that at all. The person who's putting in 100% is, growing at a non-linear rate compared to you. He's kind of shooting up like this on a sort of hockey stick curve. He's putting 100% in from here, and so his hockey stick curve starts way sooner than yours does. If you're putting in 40%, you're going to be doing this for like 6 years, and then eventually you'll start to spike, and you'll kind of come up eventually. And then you'll finally decide that it's time to, put in 100% because you see it's working. But then you put in 100% and everything breaks because you're not used to putting in 100% because you built this thing around a platform, a foundation of only putting in 40%. So my thing, especially if you're a young guy, man, if you're like 25 and under, I'm 20 right now. If you're 25 and under, like, honestly, drop everything you're doing and try and start a business. Like, you cannot lose. You just can't lose. Yeah, that's my opinion. Now, other people will give you other opinions. They're going to say, hey, it's risky. You've got other things you got to do. But honestly, before you're 30, especially if you don't have kids, like, I'm dating somebody, but I'm not married. So in my mind, I'm single. Like, marriage is really what, like, bonds me to somebody and makes them, like, a part of my life. Like, a crucially important part of my life. And so, really, for me, I have no obligations. I don't have any obligations to her. I don't have any obligations to kids. I don't have any bills to pay besides my rent and business stuff. So, like, why not go all in? So I encourage you to do the same thing. No half, only all in. And then you want to get rid of these personal things that are making you struggle. Like, one thing for me, like, full transparency, was my parents. They were super proud of me, but they've also been very risk averse, which is interesting because my father's also an entrepreneur. And so it's particularly my mom, more than it is my dad. And I'm not down-talking her. I love her. And if she's watching this is not in any way to attack. But she's very prone to seeing the risks that I'm taking and is more afraid than she is excited. And I used to interpret that as this being a bad idea for me to do. I used to interpret her wanting the best for me as her not wanting me to start a business. Because I never even really finished high school. So I was homeschooled, grew up around my family, grew up in a fairly entrepreneurial household, and, I never finished my high school because I just went right into business. My dad, pretty neutral about it. He was like, you know what, if you could figure it out, figure it out. My mom hated the idea, hated the fact that I stopped school, primarily because she took it personally, because she was like my teacher. She just assigned like workbooks to me and stuff. And so she felt dishonored by that. And so ever since, she's kind of had a weird taste. And if you're watching this, Mom, I'm not talking to you at all. I love you. I genuinely love you. So I had to deal with that. I had to figure out, how do I navigate that? And as a young guy, as like a 17-year-old guy, having your mom really not like the decisions that you're making is a huge weight. It's a really big weight that I have to bear on my shoulders. So I had to get rid of that. And so, if you're 40, 50 years old, or you're 30 years old, or you're down the line, maybe you're a woman and you have different issues, just consider this an example of one that I had to get rid of. I had to really deal with this issue. I had to really own what I'm doing. And the second I began to own it and be convicted and convinced that what I'm doing is the right thing for me to be doing, what's interesting is, these people in my life who sort of doubted began to kind of adopt my certainty. And I didn't even make that much money at the time. I was just so certain that you couldn't argue with me. And, a tip underneath that is, don't announce you're going into entrepreneurship until you have some money in the bank. Like, no need to be like a big dramatic, hey, I'm not going to college, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and, make a big fuss in your family, your friend relationships. Just keep it on the down low, keep your head down, work on this thing, announce it later when you've got the money to prove that what you're doing is actually what you should be doing, okay? So that's my next tip. So first, niche. Don't focus on which niche, focus on how you approach it. Get obsessed with it. Second is personal life issues. And I talked a lot about relational stuff, so I'm going to talk a bit more about habits real quick, because I feel like that's an important part of your personal life as well. Look, if you're eating poorly, if you've got poor sleep habits, if you've got poor thinking habits, if you've got poor routine, like, dude, it is going to be so hard for you to run a business. Now, you can do it. You can do it. I'm not saying you need to tackle these things before you start a business, because what will happen is you're going to focus on getting better sleep instead of getting better results. Like that, I got into that loop myself. I was like, oh, I need to get better sleep so that I can get better results. And then what happened is I focused on sleep and my revenue got down. Like it's a flow. Both come from the same source of certainty and conviction. See what I'm saying? So it's like both come from the same place. You can't categorize sleep and business and blah, blah, blah. It's all one big life. It's either one big mess or one big success. And so I wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did. I kind of like that. It's one big mess or one big success. So it all comes from the same place of certainty and conviction in what you're doing. When you're certain and you're convinced that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing, all these things align much more naturally. I guarantee it. Okay? So that's the next thing. Like with your routines, with your eating, with everything. Nail that in. Discipline yourself. Don't rely on motivation. Rely on good systems, good routines. And build a better system for you to grow a business off of. Because you are the foundational system that your entire business, which is another system, exists on and exists through. And if you're a bad foundation for a business to grow off of, the business won't last. You got to understand that. And now there are people who sleep in, they eat poorly, and they still make tons of money. And that's because they have the willpower to work through all of the brick walls that come when you don't have these things tackled. But it makes it significantly easier, especially when you're beginning, especially with how manual running a business is, when you are your only leverage to dominate, your routines and your systems, your habits, your personal life, these sorts of things. Okay? So you got niche, you got personal life. Those are the two main things. Okay? And I would say that the last thing, and I kind of had one written down, but I don't think it's very good. So I kind of want to think of a better one real quick. Because with niche, you want to focus on becoming them, really. You want to become the kind of person you want to attract. Second, focus on personal life. And honestly, I kind of want to expand on that last one, actually, for our third point. Become the kind of client you want to attract. So one of my top students that I've worked with, he's at like $45,000 a month right now. He was at like $3,000 to $5,000 a month when I worked with him, okay? And I just scaled him way the frick up. And I did that, honestly, primarily by shifting how he viewed himself. So he had great proof of concept. He had a great agency. He had what it took to scale this thing. He had good systems. He got a lot of willpower. He's got a lot of time on his hands, no commitments, very few personal issues. He just viewed himself kind of poorly. And really, the problem became that he didn't see that anybody would ever pay him the amount of money that he wanted to charge. Like these $3,000 to $5,000 a month contracts, or these $8,000 upfront payments. The kind of level that I'm operating on now, actually. So I got him really to a very similar level to me. And frankly, he's probably going to shoot me up. I think he already did, which I think is really cool. And so I got him to change how he views himself. And I helped him become the kind of client that he wants to attract. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by the kind of client you want to attract? Well, you got to think, what kind of client do you want to attract? What kind of person do you want to attract? Do you want to attract the kind of person who's slow in decision-making, waits on an invoice for a month and a half and finally pays, and when he does pay, he only pays half of it? And then when the second half is due, he pushes it off for a week and then pays it eventually, and you got a poor relationship with him? Do you want to be that kind of person? Because watch this happen. Life is a mirror. If you act that way, you will attract that kind of person. Guaranteed. Literally guaranteed. Okay? So become the kind of client you want to attract. If you are not obsessed with changing who you are, your clients won't be obsessed with investing in you, right? If you're not obsessed with becoming the kind of person who deserves the sorts of results and the sorts of business that you want, then your business won't follow suit, okay? And that's not just good sleep, good eating habits, all this bull crap. It's conviction. It's an inner conviction that what you're doing moves the needle for people in their life and their business. It's becoming the kind of person who isn't afraid to invest the sorts of money that you're wanting people to invest, so that way you're not intimidated by those numbers, right? Which is in part why I went ahead and actually let me move my phone here because I'm recording on my phone. It's in part why I moved into this beautiful location. It's because I wanted to stop being so intimidated by high rent, high expenses. So I probably won't be here very long. I'll probably be here another 10 months. But what I've decided to do with this is use it as a time for me to practice getting used to that level of luxury and that level of money in, money out, And some people would say, that's so stupid, dude. Like, save your money. You're 20, you're young. But for me, I'm young. I can spend it. And I want to get used to luxury. And frankly, $3,500 a month on rent isn't that much when you think about how it's serving me in my business. Image, the abundance that comes with feeling this environment. Like, it makes me feel like the kind of client that I want to attract. I want to attract other people who are at the level that I'm at. I want to attract people who are doing $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month. I want to attract people who are on track, to be millionaires in their 20s. Like, those are my favorite types of clients. People who are serious about this stuff. Like, they are sold out. They've been 100% invested since day one, and they have never faltered. And that's the kind of people I want to attract. So I became that kind of person. I went all in. No reserves. 100% all in on this thing. And if you've known me from the beginning, maybe you were my coach from the beginning, or maybe you worked with me from the beginning in some way, you've seen this transition. You've seen me go from a kind of a shy, kind of like, I'm not really 100%, and I kind of did my best, but my best wasn't really quite enough, and I would beat myself up over that, and all these little things. And then I snapped out of it one day, and I was like, frick, I've been doing it all wrong. I'm not relying on the right things. I'm relying on myself, my power. I'm not building leverage. I'm not building systems. I'm not thinking right. And I started fixing these things, and things grew much quicker. So become the client you want to attract. That's my last tip. A lot of people want these big retainers, but they don't think like the kind of person who would pay for a big retainer. Does that make sense? I'm not saying the kind of person who would pay for a big retainer pays $3,500 a month for rent. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's any attachment to the level of rent you pay and, how much money you make. Honestly, I think it's stupid for some people to pay the amount that I pay, okay? It's just stupid. But I've built it in. I've got leverage there. I'd rather stop talking about my rent now. My point is, if you're not thinking like the kind of person you want to attract, you're probably not going to attract them. And it goes very similarly back to, niche research. Like, it's not the niche, it's how you approach them. You got to think like them. So, to sum up this video, niche. It's how you approach it, not what the niche is. Second, it's these personal balls and chains that hold you back, that will keep you from succeeding. Okay? And lastly, it's these personal identity things. Like, if you think you're not worthy of this sort of payment, then you're not going to get it. I can guarantee that. Like, if you don't think like that kind of person, if you're not that kind of person, you're not going to get it. Like, you'll notice that everybody in your life is a reflection of who you are. Every friend you've ever had, every girlfriend you've ever had, every boyfriend, right? Every single person you've ever attracted into your life. Not necessarily family, because you're born into that. But every single person that you've attracted, that has come to you, that you've met, that you've become friends with, that you've done business with, whatever it may be, they on some level reflect a quality that you have. And if you're made up of all of these negative qualities and you yourself would make a crappy client, you're probably going to attract really crappy clients. It's really that simple. There's nothing spiritual about it. There's no like ascended level of reality bullcrap going on. It's just simply that people see who you are and they see through. Very easily people can see through who you are. Like, it's very easy to kind of look at someone, hear them talk for a while, and really understand who they are at the end of it. And so if they don't see that you're that kind of person, it's going to be really hard for you to attract, them. Like, you have to kind of be similar to them. So that's my final advice. Hopefully this is good stuff for your agency. Look, if you are interested in the 6-figure marketing consultant program, I've actually got a couple slots open on my calendar where you can schedule a one-to-one call. Use the link in the description. I'm taking calls pretty much all week right now. Would love to be enrolling more people in there, getting your agency going, getting you a part of the community, and also potentially even having you work with me one-on-one if I feel like you're in a good spot for that. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.